Let's do it. Be nice to me, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is 1 p.m. I'm going to call the 13th meeting of the Planning and Environment Committee to order. This is a special meeting, and it is only for the items that are listed on our public agenda. No additional items on this meeting. I will begin by acknowledging that the City of London is situated on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenape-Pewak, and Attawandaron peoples, and that we honor and respect the history, languages, and culture of the diverse Indigenous people who call this territory home. The City of London is currently home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and as representatives of the people of the City of London, we are grateful to have the opportunity to work and live in this territory. I also want to share that the City of London is committed to making every effort to provide alternate formats and communication supports for meetings upon request. And to make a specific request for this meeting, please contact pec@london.ca or phone 519-661-2489, extension 2425. Colleagues, just before we begin, I'll advise Councillor Lehman, who is our regular chair, is not joining us today. Councillor Hillier is with us online, and all other members are in chambers, as well as visiting Councillor Hopkins. I will look first for any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we have no items on the consent agenda today. We have 6 scheduled items. As we have only 2 other members of the committee in chambers with me, Councillor Frank and Councillor Rahman, I'm just going to seek your consent that you'll move and second the opening and closing of the public participation meetings just for efficiency's sake, and I'm seeing nods. So we will start with item 3.1. This is with respect to 920 to 940 Dundas Street demolition request for heritage listed properties. And we will call the vote to open the public participation meeting.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-0.
And we'll look to see if anyone is here, including the applicant first, if they are here, who wishes to speak to the demolition request for 920 to 940 Dundas Street. Seeing none, then we will move the vote to close the public participation meeting. And that's Councillor Rahman and Councillor Frank again. And I will ask.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, colleagues. And now I'll look for a motion from committee. Councillor Rahman.
Thank you. I'll move the staff recommendation, please.
And Councillor Frank's indicating she'll second. Looking for any discussion. Seeing none, then I will ask the clerk to open the vote.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, colleagues. Moving on to 3.2. This is the demolition request for heritage listed property 243 Wellington Road. So with the same mover and seconder, I will ask the clerk to open the vote for the public participation meeting.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-0.
So I'm looking for any speakers, starting with the applicant or anyone else who wishes to speak to 43 Wellington Road. And we'll go up to the to my top right.
My name is Anna Maria Velastro. I'm here to speak on this demolition and two others. I find it disappointing that the rapid transit has resulted in major construction and demolition of several heritage buildings along Wellington Street, including this church. This church serves a fundamental community function. They give away equipment for handicapped people and people who are elderly for free. I've used that service before for my own family. It's a hub of community, and I feel that the whole approach to the way we handle bus rapid transit on this part of the route is very flawed. Other cities have done similar light rail faster, and they removed a lane of traffic. And it was cheaper, it was more efficient, it would have been done by now. And I think that if there's a way to revise what we're doing and keep this church, I think that's what this committee should do. I think it's high time that the committee show leadership in building preservations. It's a waste of resources. It doesn't have to be done this way. And I think there should be an effort to preserve this community church. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Velastro. Looking for any other speakers? Seeing none, I will ask the clerk to open the vote to close the public participation meeting with the same mover and seconder.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Colleagues, looking for any motion from committee? Councillor Frank?
Thank you. I'll move the staff recommendation.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Rahman. Looking for any discussion? And seeing none, I will ask the clerk to open the vote on that.
Motion carries 4-0.
Colleagues, moving on, the next item on the agenda is 3.3. This is with respect to the property at 1163 Richmond Street. I will note for colleagues to preface this one that this is related to the earlier application that came forward, and we did receive it here at committee, although we actually were no longer required to vote on it because of changes made in provincial legislation for housing with regard to Western University's campus. So this is the demolition application that actually enables the residence construction to move forward. So we will open the vote for the public participation meeting with the same mover and seconder.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-0.
And looking for speakers on 1163 Richmond Street. And I'll go back up to the upper right, Ms. Velastro.
Why the university can incorporate this building. It's made from slate. It's a solid building into their plans. And there's no reason why we can't have leadership from council and committees to encourage that sort of holding buildings and reusing them, repurposing them, and encouraging creative architecture. The buildings that are currently being approved across the city, they're just knockoffs from the city of Toronto. If you've been there recently, you'll see them. And so it's time that we sort of encourage our own architecture, our own way forward. And there's no reason why Western can't incorporate this building into whatever it is they're building. So, you know, so this planning committee could show leadership, and even if they make it a footnote or they make it a verbal note, but that we can't just go forward the way we're going. It's just destructive, a waste of resources, and I think just people find it discouraging. Thank you.
Looking for other speakers. Seeing none, then I will ask the clerk to open the vote to close the public participation meeting with the same.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-0.
And I will look for a motion from committee. Counselor Rahman,
Thank you. I'll move the staff recommendation, please.
and that's seconded by Counselor Frank. Looking for any discussion? Seeing none, then I will ask the clerk to open the vote.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-0.
Moving on, colleagues, the next item on the agenda is 3.4. This is the demolition request specific to 3810 to 3814 Colonel Talbot Road. And I will ask the clerk to open the vote with the same mover and seconder for the public participation meeting.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-0.
And looking for speakers to 3810 to 3814 Colonel Talbot Road.
So this property is large enough
Sorry,
to, oh,
Ms.
can I
Velastro,
go
sorry.
ahead?
I just was checking online, so if you can just wait until I acknowledge you. And I don't have anyone online, so if you'd like to go ahead.
So again, this property is large enough to preserve this house, incorporate it for some creative landscaping and buildings. The city is just rubber stamping development, and the city is just growing in a way that a lot of people don't consider it exciting. And the London Plan was adopted and endorsed by many residents because it included recognition of heritage buildings to be incorporated and preserved. And with this new council, all that's thrown out the window. And so, again, we're looking for leadership coming from this committee and council as a whole to start preserving our heritage, asking developers to incorporate it. This building was met all the criteria for the under the Ontario Heritage Act. It met 3 criteria, and it should be designated as a heritage building and incorporated. Again, I think people are just starving for more creativity, more leadership from this committee and council as a whole to preserve our heritage and push creative architecture so the city doesn't look like a cookie cutter of other cities. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking for other speakers? Seeing none, I will ask the clerk to open the vote to close with the same mover and seconder.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, colleagues, and I'll look for a motion from committee. Councilor Rahman?
Thank you. Before a motion, I just wanted to ask a quick question of staff just related to any kind of designation, the conversations that have happened with the developer, if any, on some sort of a plaque or something to recognize the historical significance of the family and on this particular site.
Mr. Gagnon?
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, that's something that we did raise with the representative of the property owner as we were talking about this application. You'll note within the staff report, we did not agree with the consultant's evaluation. Staff do feel that it meets one of the criteria, one of the 9 criteria of the Ontario Heritage Act for designation, finding significant historical associations with the Bogue family were important in the settlement of Westminster Township. So staff are very encouraging of recognition of their contributions to the development of Westminster in the future redevelopment, and staff will be looking to advance those encouraging conversations as the site proceeds through redevelopment processes.
Councillor?
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that, and I agree with the staff report and willing to put forward the staff recommendation.
Okay, so I'll just confirm that we've got a seconder and Councillor Frank. We'll look for further discussion, and I know Councillor Hopkins, you're the ward councillor, and I'll come to you next.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Chair, for recognizing me, and this is in the ward, and I do appreciate the public's comments as well as the committee members' comments about the criteria that this property has. I'm encouraged that staff are having those conversations with the owner. It is important. It was, if you read the report, there's a lot of information. There's a lot of history and culture in this area, and really would encourage the applicant to continue to do something, commemorate or incorporate something in the development. So just, those are my thoughts, and many thanks to staff. There's a lot of information here, a lot of work that went into that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. Looking for any further speakers? Seeing none, we've got a motion that's been moved and seconded. I will ask the clerk to open the vote on that.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, colleagues. Moving on, the next item on our agenda, 3.5, is with respect to the demolition request for 773 Dundas Street West. And I will ask the clerk to open the vote for the public participation meeting.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-0.
And we'll look for any speakers to 773 Dundas Street. And I see Mr. Frugius on behalf of the applicant. And so, Mr. Frugius, I know you've been with us many times. You know how this goes. You've got 5 minutes and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon and to you and the committee members. My name is Harry Frusios. I'm here on behalf of London Cross Cultural Center. I just want to thank staff for their efforts in moving forward this recommendation. We fully support the removal of this site from the register. It will allow us to proceed with next steps, which is a rezoning application to proceed with a mixed-use building that will allow more affordable housing and support services for newcomers. So we're anxious to move forward with this application with your support this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Looking for any other speakers? Seeing no one in the gallery, no one online, I will ask the clerk to open the vote to close the public participation.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-0.
And I look to committee for a motion. Councillor Rahman.
Thank you. I am very excited to move this staff recommendation because I can't wait to see what will go in place of this building at 773 Dundas Street, where I know we have some very significant plans in the area for some much needed housing. So I see Valley from CCLC here. I want to thank him for his collaboration with the city to keep us well informed as to what's taking place on that site, and see this as a necessary next step as we move forward. So happy to move the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. So that's been moved. Do we have a seconder in Councillor Frank? We do. Looking for any further discussion? Seeing none, I will ask the clerk to open the vote.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, colleagues. We have one more item on the agenda from our scheduled items, and that is 456 Sunningdale Road South. And I'm going to look to a committee member to move in second, Councillor Frank and Councillor Rahman. And I will that.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, colleagues. I know the applicant has a representative here, and I understand that Mr. Kavik, you have some slides that you are going to help run while that presentation is given to us. So welcome, sir. If you can give us your name, and there'll be 5 minutes. Mr. Kavik will have your slides running for us as you go, so you can indicate to him any assistance you might need in changing the slide deck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to present Sunningdale North to you today. My name is Dave Schmidt. I'm the development manager for Corlawn Properties Sunningdale Golf and Country Club, 200 Village Walk Boulevard, Suite 400, N6G 0W8. Corlawn and Sunningdale have been developing the neighborhoods of Sunningdale for the last 25 years. Larry? Since making our announcement on March 30th, 2017, that Sunningdale Golf Club would transition from 36 to 18 holes, We've been hard at work. Over these 7 years and through a global pandemic, the consultation on this project with the city has been extensive and has included significant involvement with the UTRCA. Significant milestones, switch slide please, included the submission of our initial proposal report, our RPR, and proposed draft plan of subdivision on May 16, 2022, and the submission of our complete Planning Act applications package for our requested official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and proposed draft plan of subdivision on April 6, 2023, complete with all necessary supporting documentation reports. The final proposal report, an EIS, archaeological assessment, stormwater management, Axford Drain restoration report, geotechnical reports, hydrogeological reports, conceptual swim reports, traffic impact studies, and urban design briefs. Next slide, please. So what is Sunningdale North? It's a proposed 51-hectare draft plan of subdivision located at the northeast corner of Sunningdale Road West and Wonderland Road North, immediately south of the city's municipal boundary, on lands which are presently owned and occupied by the Sunningdale Golf and Country Club. Our Planning Act applications, as previously indicated, were submitted on April 6, 2023, and seek an official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of subdivision. Next slide, please. The proposed draft plan of subdivision provides for 155 single-family lots, 6 multifamily residential blocks, and 1 multifamily residential mixed-use block, 1 school block, which provides for a combined high school elementary campus, 1 green space block to accommodate a reconstructed Axford Drain complete corridor, which is 5.104 hectares in size, 671 meters stretching from Wonderland to Sunningdale Road, and varies between 62 meters and 110 meters wide. 4 green space blocks for park and multi-use trails, totaling 3.104 hectares, based upon a Central Park concept featuring a mini soccer field, basketball court, play structure, and multi-use trails that connects through the entire neighborhood and across the Axford Drain. Serviced by 11 new streets, also provides for a realigned entranceway to Sunningdale Golf Club to access internal neighborhood connector streets as opposed to how it presently connects to Sunningdale Road. And the subdivision accommodates and anticipates the city's future road widening of Sunningdale Road to a 4-lane urban cross-section in 2026. Next slide, please. Sunningdale North will truly become one of London's next greatest neighborhoods. With its Central Park concept and countless multi-use trail corridor connecting to existing and future neighborhoods. However, the true gem and focal point of Sunningdale North is clearly the Axford Drain Complete Corridor, which will provide new fish and wildlife habitat within its newly created wetlands, approximately 0.748 hectares, woodlands, 0.863 hectares, meadowlands, little more than 2 hectares, and aquatic habitat of slightly more than 0.215 hectares. A realigned, constructed Axford Drain, complete with its multi-use bridge crossing, will remove existing fish barriers and open and restore this waterway, as parts of it are presently piped, and will remove various anthropogenic impacts that have occurred to this corridor over the last 100 years, to a new meandering alignment, complete with riffles and pools, while providing the necessary conveyance for future flood flows. Compensation, mitigation for the removal of other existing fragmented and degraded natural heritage features will presently exist, which presently exist on the existing lands. Next slide, please. As previously mentioned, Sunningdale North will provide 155 single-family lots and 6 multifamily residential blocks and 1 multifamily residential mixed-use block. These multifamily blocks will provide various forms of housing, from townhouses to stacked townhouses to apartments. Maximum heights on these blocks, as you can see from this image, will provide various forms of range from 1 to 6 stories, with the highest 6 stories being focused at the intersection of Wonderland Road North, which is designated as an urban thoroughfare, and Sunningdale Road West, which is designated as a civic boulevard, and then transition down as you head north and east along both these roadways, all as envisioned when the city approved the London Plan, and specifically Table 11 within the London Plan in June 2016. Of note, as the committee is aware, the city is presently undertaking a heights framework review of the London Plan. Early indications suggest that an official plan amendment will be forthcoming administratively by the city that will increase maximum
30
building
seconds.
heights on lands designated within the neighborhood place types which are located along these major types of streets. The application for the official plan and zoning bylaw amendments are consistent with the Planning Act and the provincial policy statement and the London Plan, and we support staff's recommendations which are before you today. Having said that, we acknowledge UTRSA's letter to the city dated August 23rd, 2023, which outlines concerns with our proposed stormwater management strategy, facility 6C East and West cells, located within the Axford Drain Complete Corridor. We look forward to continuing to work with the city and UTRSA to address this matter through the draft approvals process and associated conditions of approval. With me here today is Gordon R. Thompson, president of Corlawn Properties Sunnydale Golf Club, and also Chris Moon, our principal water resources engineer with Matrix, who's been significantly involved in the environmental and engineering work on the Axford Drain. We're happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, and a special thanks to Mr. Kavik for running the slide deck for us. Extra duty today, so I'm going to move to committee to look for a motion on this, and then we can entertain any discussion. Councillor Rahman.
Thank you. I'll move the staff recommendation and then look to speak to it.
Oh, sorry, before we go ahead, we have to actually, I have
Close
to
the-
ask the clerk to close the PPM, so I'm going to open the vote on that first. Sorry, Ms. Velastro.
No, I'm sorry, I'm confused. And I have some comments, and they may seem, I might be confused. Please feel free to correct me. First of all, stormwater drains carry polluted water away. Okay, it's not good for wildlife, and especially not good for fish. And stormwater ponds are not wetlands. Those words are misleading. They hold runoff from roads that have toxic materials from car exhaust, bits and pieces from rubber, and you can actually see larger garbage in them. And you can see this if you actually go look at them. There's numerous of them around the city. So a stormwater pond is not a wetland, and a stormwater drain is not good for fish. So I think that you can prove that through the science. And so while there's a green space with trails and what have you, the question here is, I just like to know if there's surface parking or if the parking is going to be underneath the houses, because if you don't have, if you have surface parking, you can't grow trees. Okay, so canopy trees need green space enough for their roots to support a full-grown tree. And if you're paving over for resident parking, you can't grow trees there. And I don't hear anything about a tree preservation. I'm familiar with that area because we go to the Sunnydale Golf Course, and there's no tree preservation plan in this subdivision. So while it's great that you're having a variety of housing choices, it's not great that you put the most dense buildings on a busy road, because now there is science that shows that people that live on busy roads that inhale all the exhaust from traffic have a higher risk of asthma, dementia, and it's about time that developers and leadership from committee start opening up these questions and asking about how people are going to be protected. These buildings have to be set back from busy intersections so they can be greened up and have a buffer. These science that's coming forward needs to be taken seriously, because you're playing games with people's health. So stormwater ponds are not wetlands. A storm drain is polluted water. You're moving polluted water from hard surfaces into the Thames River. It's not good for fish. And there's no tree preservation plan. This area is heavily treed. It's not clear whether parking is going to be underneath the buildings so that you can have space, open space to grow trees, canopy trees, because every house needs trees. It's getting hotter out there. They need protection. And people that live in multifamily units deserve better than to be put right on a busy road where there's no buffer between the exhaust that's coming off of heavy traffic and their health. And again, the leadership comes from this committee and council, and so far we haven't seen any leadership on these matters that are becoming more pressing and science-based.
Thank you, Ms. Velastro, and we'll look for other speakers. And I'll come to the lower, my right speaker, and if we can just get your name, and then you have 5 minutes.
Diane, good afternoon. And just a point of, just to make you aware, it's sometimes really hard to hear. It would be great if the volume, especially those of you, Mr. Lewis, along your right and left, to speak up. I'm really having to strain to hear. Thank you. I live on Wonderland. Well, I live on Wallingford. I've been there for 7 years. The back of my house runs along Wonderland Road. I would say the last 2 years, 3, the traffic has become exponentially more chaotic. It's not cars. I'm talking about 5, 6, 7 big trucks, dump trucks, going Wonderland North, or going south, coming off the traffic circle, revving the engines. There's one thing about the engines revving with cars, it's the big vehicles that are really having an impact on the enjoyment of my property. And so that's a micro issue. I could spend all afternoon describing to you as a community member what the impact of the growth that we've seen thus far has been. The one grocery store in that area, No Frills, the parking lot is like Costco on a Saturday afternoon, but it's every day. Going into Shoppers Drug Mart, that might seem minor to you, but the pharmacist is saying there's so many people here, we can't support them. What I'm getting at is there's an infrastructure issue. Sunningdale, if you want to go towards Richmond Street, you're in a lineup that is probably about 4 lights before you can get out at the peak times of traffic movement. The Sunningdale Road, as we saw, it recently got repaired, but it was disintegrating before our eyes. What I am seeking is just some sensibility around infrastructure before we go gangbusters. This crescendo is happening without the area. And I would liken it to if I wanted to build a second floor at the top of my house. I've got somebody that can come rent it, I could make some money, great, but I need to go through the requisite steps. Does it fit the community? Does the structure fit the city plan, et cetera? I just don't go and build something and hope everything around it. I have to go through that process. And I really don't see, I've seen something new here today, but I'm not hearing the infrastructure is being solved for. And I've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and I'm not seeing any changes. I'm seeing the changes are going to be happening on the back of the owners. The burden is going to fall to us, the enjoyment of our community. I'm not against advancement. I think it's great and we need it, but it has to be a bit of a balance. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll look for any further speakers. And seeing none, we have none online, so now I will ask the clerk to move to close the public participation meeting.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. And now I will go to Councillor Rahman.
Thank you. So I'm looking to move the staff recommendation on this item, and then I'd like to speak to it if that's okay.
And we'll look to see if you've got a seconder. Councillor Hillier, would you like to second something today? I see your hand up on Zoom, so I'm going to go to you for the seconder on that one. And now I will go back to Councillor Rahman for comments.
Thank you. So this development is in Ward 7, which I represent, and so I want to speak generally to some of the concerns that I've heard, some of which were shared by Diana as well. First, I want to say that I'm quite familiar with this development, and that familiarity comes from early consultation with the developer, and I want to thank them for that. Not only did they consult with me, but they went out of their way, I would say, to engage in some meaningful consultation with neighbors as well in the area through community meetings and other forms of conversation. So I think that that's one really helpful. And I do know I had a number of golf club members send me notifications that you sent to golf club members as well to let them know about what's taking place on this development. This is a significant development in the Sunningdale neighborhood, and to me, it fits the form of what we see in the neighborhood, along with some, I would say right now, but again, with the height review still coming through, some medium density that I think fits with the area and the changing nature of the area as well. I agree with a lot of the residents that I heard from. Traffic in the area, it's extremely congested. You know, today on Sunningdale Road coming in to City Hall, yeah, traffic was backed up from Richmond all the way to Wonderland on Sunningdale Road. And part of that is some of the development that's taking place in the area, and some of it is just related to growth. And it's why we have a plan to move forward with an expansion on Sunningdale Road. The holdup on that expansion is not related to any of the developers or any of the things that the city wants to do. It really comes down to some back and forth between Imperial Oil and the city to be able to move forward. And this is something that we need to move forward on. And it's something myself, the mayor, Councillor Pribble, who also represents part of the area that's being expanded, have been working quite hard on to try to move this issue forward. Because we know that it's integral to the build out that's happening in this corridor. We also know, and I spoke to this issue on CBC, that we do not have transit coming to this corridor. But again, this has to do with how we're growing as a city. And I'm pleased to see LTC coming forward saying they will bring assessment growth plans forward and requests forward for new developments like Sunningdale. However, we know that, you know, we don't have buses into Fox Field, which has been built out for over a decade. So Sunningdale Road and that corridor needs some significant transit investment. They need significant investment in things like community centers. I'm so pleased to see a large school block in this build, because I know the pressures that we have in the northwest part of the city when it comes to schooling. I'm pleased to see that you've considered recreational amenities. You've spoken today about what could be there. I know pickleball is what I hear the most about, but that's a whole other issue. And so there are things that I think that we can do to provide more in terms of lifestyle, as well as to address some of the traffic congestion and infrastructure needs in the area. But I'm supportive of what's here. I agree, and I know we've spoken about tree loss in the area, and it is something that I am quite committed to seeing us do something about as well, and hope the developer will consider that during site plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Looking for other speakers? Seeing none, I will ask the clerk to open the vote.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, colleagues. So moving on, that concludes our scheduled items. We have no items for direction today under Section 4. We have 2 items under deferred matters, additional business. We have the deferred matters list to be received, and we have the 8th report of the Community Advisory Committee on Planning to be received. I'm just going to check with the clerk, but I believe we could have those both in one motion. And I'm seeing a nod that yes, we can. So if a committee member was so inclined, we can move both of these for receipt together. Councillor Rahman, you're willing to move. Councillor Frank, you're willing to second. So that's been moved and seconded. We call the vote. Seeing none, all those in favor? Sorry, put that on eScribe. Just looking ahead to the next item, which is moving in camera. So. It's not coming up.
For the committee, it's under the title Deferred Matters Additional Business.
Okay, that should be open for everybody now.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-0.
And then, colleagues, we have one item to deal with in confidential session. So I'm going to look for a mover and a seconder to go into confidential session. Moved by Councillor Rahman, seconded by, and I will have the clerk open the vote on that.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, colleagues. We will get the room ready for our confidential session. I'll just say to staff who are leaving us after the provincial funding announcement this morning, we're really happy we've delegated removing holding provisions to you, because I think once Ms. Ramlou spends that money, there's going to be a lot of age provisions coming off, and we're just glad you're not going to have to bring them back here for our consideration. All right, colleagues, the clerk informs me that we are fully public again. The live streams are back up, the gallery is open, and I will go to Councillor Rahman to fill in for me as the vice chair to report out from closed session.
Thank you, and I'll report out that progress was made on the item that we went in camera for.
Thank you. So that concludes our agenda. All we need now is a motion for adjournment, and moved by Councillor Rahman and seconded by Councillor Frank. And we can do this one by hand. All those in favor?
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-0.
Have a great rest of your day.